Hello, and thank you for joining me on this episode of Eighth House Portal. Today's topic: when the world feels heavy and why community matters now. So let's get right into it. We will always be dealing with our own personal issues, but there will also be a global current of shared themes, and sometimes we will be dealing with the same issues no matter where you live. If you can think back to several years ago where we all had to deal with the COVID lockdowns, I remember watching the news one morning, and I think they showed different cameras around the world, and there were no people in the streets. It was all empty. That was quite scary. It was kind of like watching a weird movie. Um, Nobody was out. So, if you can think of things like that, that's kind of an extreme example, but we will all be affected at some point with global events. We'll all be dealing with the same things. Now, of course, there are some extreme situations where certain people live every day in absolute poverty and war, and their entire lives are unfortunately drenched in these situations. That specific topic, I think, needs a closer look at another point in time. But for now, let's take a quick look at some of the issues or themes that have popped up in 2025, or that have kind of flowed down into 2025 from previous years. We have the issue of coral bleaching. I think it's something like 85% of the world's coral reefs have suffered bleaching due to record high ocean temperatures. And when you start learning and looking into coral bleaching, it's truly devastating because it affects so many ecosystems, and it's already been affecting us for some time. It's really scary, guys. I'm hoping that there are some STEM-minded kids out there that can create some solution in the future to help with this issue. I also read somewhere that these are all cycles the Earth goes through. So we are really having to deal with this change, this evolution, the cycles. We don't have an option. I remember something my brother said to me not long ago. He said, "You do realize that coral was here on Earth during the time of the dinosaurs. It will find a way to continue existing." And I just thought that was an interesting thing to know. Some of the coral must become resilient over time to the increasing or decreasing temperatures and the change in the pH levels. Um, I know that currently there are some scientists out there that are working really hard trying to create resilient coral. I'm not sure what the technique is called. I think it's like, is it called splicing? Where they take a part of the coral that is resilient to higher temperatures and or pH levels, um, and then they connect it or attach the coral that isn't resilient, and they try to monitor it and gently and slowly kind of expose that to higher temperatures in hopes to create more resilient coral. So that is something that is occurring right now. There is an acceleration of renewable energy, with solar and wind becoming more affordable than fossil fuels. There's also been a surge in AI investing, and also a global agreement regarding the need to create global rules as AI is developing at such a fast rate. Um, and this is from the BRICS summit in Rio. They brought up the fact that it isn't a good idea for AI to be controlled by only a few companies or big tech companies, as this could create a digital divide where poorer countries are left behind. So the UN, the United Nations, is going to take the lead in creating worldwide AI regulations. They want rules to protect human rights and privacy with equal access to AI tech so that all countries can benefit. Um, and that the use of AI is to help solve global problems, not just used for military power or increasing profits. Then there's the global trade, where we have the US imposing tariffs on certain countries. And those crazy tariffs created ripple effects, with some countries shooting back tariffs at the US. These actions have caused increased prices for Americans and other countries. You've got businesses scrambling to find alternate supply chains, and other countries emphasizing buying local or only from their country. This also forced countries to create stronger ties to non-US trade networks, which could shift global economic power. Currently, there's a deal with the EU to reduce a full-blown trade war. I'm not sure where that's going. The US has unpredictable actions. There's a pause in the tariffs, and then there's a new threat. There's this uncertainty that's been created. And then there's the US-China relationship. It's so uncertain. So do the economic costs outweigh the intended benefits? Like they're doing this to apparently boost their economy, the US economy, the manufacturing and the jobs. They want to protect US industries, implement border control. Are those intended benefits, are they outweighing the issues now that are occurring? Canada is still in limbo with the US. This tariff war is just something I think was shoved out so fast and big. Was this really thought out? Is this all part of a bigger plan? Probably. But who gets affected and suffers the most? It's all of us, the normal working class individuals. Everyone else at the top doesn't seem to really care about the effects of the game they keep playing and what's happening to people's lives and the suffering. I'm seeing more homelessness in my town, and it's so sad. Whole families are being pushed out of their homes. Basic needs can't be met. You have kids going to school without a meal. And I'm talking about places like Canada and America, supposed developed countries. I mean, that's been going on for a while, where kids are going to school without, a meal. When I went to school when I was quite young, I mean, our school, this was in the UK, we had school lunches. Why don't we have that here? Because we know it's an issue. We see generations of families moving into the same house because no one can afford a home any longer. Just in my town, I mean, homes are $2 million, $1.5 million and up. Rent, you want to rent something? It's through the roof. You have 1-bedroom basement apartments going for around $2,000 a month. Who can afford that? You've also got the conflict, displacement, and human insecurity. So, you've got armed conflict, persecution, violence, and human rights violations still going on. People being forced to leave their homes, disrupting education, the loss of livelihood, trauma, and the long-term instability. At the end of June 2024, I believe it was approximately 122.6 million people worldwide were forcibly displaced due to persecution, conflict, violence, or events disturbing public order. The UN Refugee Agency states that displacement affects identity, belonging, and safety. Then you've got food insecurity and hunger. Chronic hunger affects millions of people, or acute food crises due to conflict. And then you've got climate change, economic shocks, and disrupted supply chains. In 2024, approximately 8.2% of the global population, so about 673 million people, experienced hunger. And that's a report from the World Food Programme. Hunger erodes health. It erodes dignity and hope. What are ways we can heal this? Food sovereignty, resilience in the local food systems, reframing food as healing. We've got climate change and environmental risks, so extreme weather, floods, heat waves, ecosystem disruption. It all creates cascading humanitarian, agricultural, and infrastructural crises. The World Economic Forum's Global Risks Report from 2025 highlights environmental risks, including extreme weather and biodiversity loss, among top global threats. So things like regenerative regenerative technology, and community gardens. Those are things that offer healing pathways. Um, and it's definitely something that people need to look into. You've also got the economic and social inequality, so increasing gaps in wealth, income, or access to resources and opportunities undermine social cohesion and create stress on the system. So there's a global survey, and it says there was a median of 54% of adults across 36 countries. They noticed a gap between the rich and the poor, which they all said was a very big problem in their country. Um, so globally, this was another interesting thing. Globally, most people think their children will be worse off financially than their parents. And they looked at each country. So the United States, 74% of people thought that their kids would be worse off financially than their parents. In Canada, it was 78%. France was 81%. The United Kingdom, 79%. Italy, 79%. Australia, 89%. South Africa, 66%. Also, data show that the richest 0.1% or 1% worldwide hold quite a large share of the global income than previous decades. So we're seeing most people and our wealth dwindling, and then that 1% of the world holding most of the global shares, and most of the ultra wealthy live in the United States. Another issue would be health and mental health emergencies. There's an increase in global burden of mental health disorders because there are inadequate services. There's an increased stress, anxiety, and trauma, especially after major global shocks like the pandemic or displacement or climate disasters. I'd be interested, in the past maybe 5-6 years, I've seen certain apps becoming available. So it sounds like they're trying to make it sound like there are more resources available to people, but some of those resources you have to pay for them. Most people are having issues with income, so making something that you have to pay for isn't going to make sense for most people. I even tried to use one just to see how it would work, and just getting on there, getting a counselor on there was an issue that I just gave up. So, for people who have real issues looking for help, I mean, where are they going to go? It seems like some of these so-called resources aren't working. And so we have the increase in all these issues, these mental health issues. The World Health Organization reports that in 2021, about 1.1 billion people globally lived with a mental disorder. And also, global mental health investment remains low. Many of us are tired of these games they keep playing with us. We're just sick and done of it. I think things like this will create a push towards communities becoming more self-sufficient and not relying on the government. We have to come to a place in time, I think we're there now, where we can see that we need to help each other. One of the things when I was trying to research this was I thought, let's look at the astrology. So if you want to look at the astrology of this time that we're in now, I'm going to try to go into some of that. Many of the astrologers I follow, there's one in particular, actually, there's one astrologer in particular that I followed. He had prepared his viewers for what was to come. He informed us years ahead of time before major things happened in the world. And at the time, people thought he was crazy. They did not believe him. A lot of people didn't believe him. And then it all happened, right? So I'm very grateful for finding him. I'm not going to say his name. I don't know if I should say his name yet, but it's amazing to actually hear about this years before it happens and then see things happening as time passes. It's quite interesting. So maybe some of you have heard of the Age of Aquarius. Well, we are in it right now. You'll hear astrologers talk about Pluto being in Aquarius. So stay with me if you don't think about astrology. You might find this interesting. Pluto is the planet of transformation, death, rebirth. Sound familiar? Yes, it's the planet in modern astrology that is associated with the eighth house. So when Pluto enters the next sign in astrology, the last time it was in Capricorn, it brings with it a new chapter for the whole world, which usually entails upheaval, crumbling of old systems, new standards, and ideas. So Pluto moved into Aquarius on November 19th, 2024. So Aquarius deals with technology, groups, radical change. So Pluto coming into Aquarius is literally shaking the foundations of society. If anyone listening to this is an astrologer or just knows more about this, please add to this in the comment section if you think I might have missed something important that you understand. I am very open to everyone sharing their point of view. In the late 1700s, that was the last time Pluto was in Aquarius. And this was the time of the American Revolution and the French Revolution, when people had had enough and rose up and old systems fell. So here you and I are at a point in history where Pluto is back in Aquarius. And for sure, foundations are changing. You can see it and feel it. It's imminent. We are seeing an accelerated rise of AI. So, with the evolution and the rise of tech, is it going to turn into something that is used to completely control us? Or is it going to somehow help communities? Currently, there's a huge issue of digital ID. I mean, we could get into that. I'm not going to right now, but does anyone remember what happened to 23andMe? Like genetic data of people being sold. Many people that signed up to that service did not want their data being shared or sold definitely not without their permission. So it makes me think back to like this digital ID thing. It makes me think back to the 23andMe issue. I don't like that. I know a lot of people are not going to like it. I'm curious to see where this goes because Europe's already rolling this out. I am seeing some innovation in the area I live in with agri-tech and how it has created more efficiency on farms. But I sometimes wonder, all the people that had those farm jobs, where do they go now? We can easily tell them to go and upskill. But then how many of those tech-educated individuals will actually get a position? I'm guessing you won't need to hire as many people since robots have taken over most of those jobs, right? So that will be interesting to see how that works out. Pluto also uncovers secrets, hidden truths. So I'm understanding this as society's secrets and shadows being revealed. And we'll all have to handle and deal with them collectively. As I'm saying this, I'm thinking of Sean Combs and how his secrets are being revealed to the world. It's disgusting. But he is just a scratch on the surface of something much bigger. At this point, we are all aware of the fact that people in power do some crazy, weird, evil shit. I mean, I heard not long ago some big name actress, I'm not going to say who she is, but her father apparently was arrested for hunting children. Hunting children, that's what I said. That's how messed up this is. It's all going to surface. The Epstein files. What's going on with that? I don't really know anymore. Why are these names not being released and the people not arrested and charged? Like how they did with the truck drivers in Canada. They were very quick to find out all the people that were at these events, right? The gatherings. their names, their bank accounts frozen. That was very quick. Charged and arrested. Why is it taking so long to deal with this list? With Pluto and Aquarius, expect revolutions in control, how we connect and share resources. The old ways will crumble and creations of new communities, and that includes digital communities. I think we are going to stand up for our freedoms and privacy, and many things will be questioned and reinvented. Again, if there are any astrologers listening that want to correct anything I've mentioned or add anything, please do. And anyone else, actually, not just astrologers or students of astrology, please do add what you feel is important, so we can all read it and learn from each other. What do you all think about the astrology being explained just a bit? Does it make sense? Do you see these themes around you? I definitely feel like things are moving into a place just as they should, no matter how difficult they are. Even this show, this podcast, this is to create a supportive community, and it will cross boundaries because it's digital. I actually held back years from finally doing this podcast because of fear. Okay, that's my own thing, but it's finally here. I'm doing it. But it's going to cross boundaries. It's supposed to be global, a global supportive community that we create. So if you are a part of this community, you are already a part of the change. We all have a role to play, an important one, whether you understand your purpose or not. But from what I've gathered listening to some amazing astrologers, these revolutions cannot happen alone. We have to stick together and help one another. Just out of curiosity, I wanted to see when other Pluto and Aquarius transits happened, and this is what I found. So in 1552 to 1553, events include the Spanish conquest for the Inca Empire, which changed South American history. So Spanish explorers reached the US at that time. Mary I became Queen of England in 1553 and was determined to restore Catholicism. Then you have the heliocentric model of our solar system being published in a book called On the Revolutions of the Heavenly Spheres by Nicholas Copernicus. This challenged the Earth-centered model of the solar system. And this began the time of scientific revolution. So there were accurate maps being produced, leading to an increase in global trade. So basically science moving towards questioning, not just doing what the church told them and not questioning, right? Observing and experimentation. Those were definitely transformative times. Wow. If you think about that, how far we've come. I'm really excited about what's to come. A little anxious, but still looking forward to it. We have an interstellar object that has entered our solar system a while back, 3I Atlas. I think they found it on July 1st in Chile this year. I believe it was the closest approach to the sun was on October 29th. So I don't know if any of you have telescopes and you were looking for it. Let me know what you saw. Some scientists are noting that there are atypical features it has for a comet, like a glowing that's ahead of it, not behind it. Some people believe that it's an alien probe. Others in the spiritual community are thinking that this was already mentioned in some texts that are out there. I'm very interested and hope that something positive comes from this, or that we learn something we didn't know before. Let me know what you all think this is. What are your thoughts on 3I Atlas? I personally don't think it's a comet. Let's wait. Let's see if we feel a shift in energy. Some people are already saying they are experiencing things that are not usual, like dreams that are much different than they're used to. This is going to be interesting. Maybe it's a way of, I don't know, upgrading our consciousness collectively. With the events occurring right now and the ones to come, like I said, finding your tribe or community, I feel, is important. Having connectedness is actually linked to lower rates of depression, anxiety, and stress. So having that network improves coping better with life challenges. And that was actually shown by a study done by Kawachi and Berkman in 2001 called Social Ties and Mental Health in the Journal of Urban Health. There's another study from the American behavioral scientists that I thought was interesting by Aldrich and Meyer in 2015 called Social Capital and Community Resilience. And they talked about communities with higher levels of trust, norms, and networks recover faster from economic shocks and disasters due to mutual aid and resource sharing. Have any of you experienced that? I know there are some states in the US where there are floods and hurricanes, and you are forced to come together as a community, I'm assuming, and help one another and share resources, right? Share if any of you have been through something like that or witnessed or experienced anything like that. Please share your experience in the comments. I agree that things like this would help and build a strong community, but I also know that there will always be certain individuals that are somewhat leaders and bullies in their communities, and what they do and say can influence others. And if those individuals have biases to certain people, that's not a proper community then, is it? So I guess there will always be room for those who are left out to maybe have to figure it out on their own, maybe create their own communities. If any of you are out there that have been through something like that, please do share your experience and what you did to move on. And maybe if you did create your own communities, let us know what you did. But what I'm getting from some of the research is that shared norms and trust are big factors in a resilient community. There are some spiritual authors that I have to mention. So Rudolf Steiner, someone I find fascinating. He mentioned for the evolution of the collective to form spiritual communities, that working together in these groups actually supports our individual spiritual growth. Steiner had this idea of the threefold social order, being a model for a balanced society, that modern society was not balanced, as these so-called spheres of human life were being mixed up. So there's a cultural and spiritual sphere, then there's a political and rights sphere, and then the economic sphere. And he said these three spheres should operate independently but harmoniously. So the cultural and spiritual spheres should operate free from economic and political control. So like no censorship on artistic or educational freedoms. So freedom of speech and thought and learning, therefore nurturing knowledge and creativity. The political and rights sphere, he said, should be based on equality and human rights, protecting all individuals under the law. Then the economic sphere, which should include fraternity and cooperation, not just for competition or profit, and that it needs to serve human needs and not wealth accumulation. There's American storyteller Michael Mead. He mentions how community storytelling and ritual help the collective through periods of dark times. You know, when you share the same stories and ideals, it creates resilience when the old foundations crumble. I really like Rudolf Steiner's views. He believed that problems erupt when these spheres that I mentioned earlier are not separated. So if the state controls something like culture, then things like censorship happen, right? Some examples that Steiner gave are schools and universities should be free to teach without political or economic pressure. Laws should protect workers' rights without favoring big businesses. Businesses should prioritize social benefit like cooperatives or community-supported agriculture rather than just maximizing profits. And that's why I love Waldorf education. They operate in the cultural sphere and are independent of state control, and they foster creativity, moral development, and critical thinking. The Waldorf education can be adapted to different cultures. That's why you'll find these schools across the globe. They are truly beautiful places for children to learn and grow. Or if you homeschool your children and, The curriculum is fantastic, especially in early childhood. What do you all think about these ideas? Are any of you familiar with Rudolf Steiner? Or have any of you attended Waldorf schools, or do you teach at them? Please share your thoughts and your experiences. There's a German philosopher, Max Scheler. He talks about how human beings are not isolated atoms, but embedded in communities of meaning, shared value, and mutual caring. So healing happens not just individually, but as a communal process. So community unites, and there's a meaningful relationship and shared values that go into action. Then you have Alice Bailey, an esoteric author, and she wrote quite a lot on healing through collective transformation and society's evolution. Her work highlights that healing isn't just personal, but connected to the soul of humanity and destiny of nations. That actually reminds me, I was recently at a lecture in Thornhill this past weekend where we discussed the same topic, being the destiny of humanity. We couldn't get through everything, unfortunately, in just 1.5 hours, but there was just so much to take in, and I loved every part of it. Um, the Professor Grant Davies talked about cosmology, the cycles of the solar systems, the hierarchies of spiritual beings and their responsibilities, the conditions of consciousness. And I wish, time was unlimited for these lectures because I really enjoy taking them. But I'm going to have to probably get the book that he mentioned that goes into more detail with those topics. What do you all feel about working together as a community? I feel there has to be somewhere we can come together and be truly honest and authentic. I know we cannot be like that everywhere we go. Sometimes it may be too intense for some people to handle our authentic selves. I know when I'm being just me, for example, like if I'm given a project to work on, I will accept it because I want to do it and I feel like it's contributing to something bigger. So I get excited and I put all my energy and focus into it, and I'm not competing or trying to look good. I'm just being me. That's how I am. I sometimes do things in a big way, like I make them like they're events. Or sometimes I can be intense about certain topics, and that can be too much for some people to handle. I mean, if I'm working on a project, I sometimes forget that not everyone is as excited as I am. Then you get some team members thinking there's competition. Trust me, there's no competition. That's just me being me. If I were to put on my competition boots, that would be a whole other story. I'm just not cared about competition anymore. That's something I did when I was in sports and dance when I was younger. So I feel like, people can say try to be your authentic self, but you can't always actually do that, can you? I try to be me as much as I can. So I feel like it can be difficult to find your tribe, but with time you will find them, whether it's, physically or digitally. And please, I'm going to just mention this because I'm hearing a lot of issues popping up and um, unfortunate incidents. I don't want to hear anyone telling me that AI is their tribe or anything like that. AI is here for us to allow us more productivity, and it's basically a library. It's not human. It has no soul. Even if it thinks it does. Please remember that and be careful. I've just heard too many stories, especially of young people, but also of grown men, like that have, taken the wrong path and treated AI like an actual person. Please be careful when you're using this tool. What do you all think of having a community to support each other in times of darkness? Let me know. Leave a comment. The reason Eighth House Portal exists is to create that community as we come together and feel the changes around us in the world, and personally going through our own issues. That harsh reality of change that comes sometimes unexpectedly, and all the transitions in life that we experience, it can be hard on the soul, on the person. We can't always do it alone. I know that one of the problems I have had for most of my life is asking for help. It doesn't matter if it's my family or so called friends or colleagues. I just hate asking others for help. I just feel like I'm bothering them and that they probably don't want to help but they do because I ask them, not because they want to. My brother said something. He says something to me. He goes, so he'll ask if I need help, and I'll say, no, I'm good. So when I refuse to help, he goes, okay, Sonia Blade. And I laugh because that's just our like inside joke. Sonya Blade is a character from Mortal Kombat, the video game, but we're referring more to the movie where, Sonya Blade refuses help when she probably should take it when it's given to her. So it's kind of like a thing he does. But I have had to learn, and still learning, to be very honest, to ask for help. Me asking for help is like a medieval rope with spikes attached around my neck. I hate it, but I'm still working through that. As we can see, healing the healing each one of us does may be in solitude, but at some level or point, it will involve the community. And as a community, it's a way to heal ourselves as well. Not everything has to be done alone. And we are finding that more and more, I think. How can we maybe create more connection in our community going forward? Now that we can see and that we know community is important to healing, especially in dark times. Some of the ideas I have in my head, you could start a circle in your community, a story circle maybe. Invite others from the community. One person at a time shares a story, maybe something that happened in the community or something personal, or how they overcame something, or maybe reflecting back on something inspiring. Just acknowledging each other, truly listening. This type of interaction builds familiarity with others in your community. It builds resilience, and it reminds people that healing is collective. You can also do like community visioning. So, answering together like what hurts the community, or what strengths you have as a group, and then something maybe that you plan to do, to commit to in that month. You could create groups that focus on nervous system regulation, grounding, deep breathing, and whatever else lands in that category. In my town, there's a business that holds community nights, and that's an attempt at creating a resilient, self-sufficient agri-tech community, because they not only share, they not only educate the community, they are um, allowing them to join a program where they can upskill, actually, where they learn new skills, and they enter the workforce, in the agricultural agri-tech sector. So, that's one thing happening in my community. Does anyone have anything happening in their community um, that brings everyone together? Put it in the comment section and share what's going on. If anyone has other ideas or tools that they use in their community, or maybe that you might think might be a good idea, please share it with us. So I'm hoping that Eighth House Portal will morph into something of greatness for the community. I am actually working on something on the side that I'll share probably in the new year. It's going to take a lot of my time, but I'm hoping to get it done as soon as I can. But I usually take a lot of time when I'm doing something and putting it together for others, because I prefer quality over quantity. But let's continue to explore the mysteries of the Eighth House and transform together. You are not alone. Thank you for stepping into the portal. Take care.